Start then. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay. Babu khiyari al-aybi. So like I said, you guys need to learn the meanings of each word. So sarf, nahu, lughatan, linguistic meaning. If it's for example like mushtari, what's mushtari? Ism fa'il. Ishtara, yashtari, ishtira, mushtari. Yeah. If it's ittala'a, what's that? Ittala'a, yattali'u. So make a habit of going, when you do your mutala, go through each one of these. So if you come across the word sha'a, insha, what's that sha'a? Yeah, fail madi. So these are things that come in the exam. I'll bring these in the exam. So I'm not telling you these things, you guys should know these already. So you got to make an effort in learning these in your own time. Okay, so Babu khiyar al-ayb. So Babu khiyar al-ayb. Now look, khiyar al-ayb. Remember I told you there's 4 types of khiyar in Hanafi fiqh. Khiyar al-ru'ya, khiyar al-shart, khiyar al-ru'ya, khiyar al-ayb, something called khiyar al-majlis. These are 4 types of khiyar. So khiyar al-ayb. Ayb is a defect that is found in an item that you buy or you sell. If, for example, like you go to the shops to buy a chocolate bar, and when you buy this chocolate bar, a Mars bar or a Snickers bar or whatever chocolate bar you want to buy, that chocolate, if it's found, you found that it's half eaten, what's that? That's a defect in there. Or for example, like you find that the date has gone expired, that's a defect in there. Or you found some insects in there, that's a defect in there. Or you find that the chocolate bar has melted, that's a defect. So to save a person, a Muslim, to save a Muslim or even a non-Muslim, to save them from being given that thing which they are not happy with, because remember we said transaction is exchanging of goods from one side to another where both parties are happy. So if a person is not happy, that's not right. Whether the seller is not happy, whether the buyer is not happy, right? That's not right, guys. So Islam wants people to buy and sell, but Islam wants there to be rules in place. So people can buy and sell fairly, a free market. Buy and sell fairly without being cheated or even forced to buy something. For example, let's say you buy a washing machine, or a TV, or a computer, or a mobile phone, and you take it home. And that mobile phone, the software inside is not working properly, keeps jamming, or the TV is not coming on. You can't be stuck with it. If you're told to be stuck with it, that means that your rights are being usurped. And Islam doesn't like that. Allah, He does not like people who oppress one another. So this is why Allah in the Quran, He says that لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل. Do not consume each other's wealth unjustly. It has to be done correctly. So this is why the rules of khiyar al-bay' have been put in place. So what are the rules of khiyar al-bay'? Scenario: Arib goes home, he buys from Imtiaz, he buys laptop, takes a laptop home, and he finds in this laptop a fault. Now, what is a fault? First of all, that's going to come next. Like, is a scratch on the screen a fault? Yeah, is dust on the keyboard a fault? Yeah, is a sticker, Windows sticker missing, is that a fault? Is it he found a CD inside the CD, is that a fault? So what is considered a fault? Maybe someone buys a chocolate bar, takes it back, and says, "Oh look, the word Mars is not written properly on there. I'm gonna give it back." Is that enough for him to be able to give it back? That's gonna come next. But before we do that, what happens if a person finds a fault in an item? So a person has 2 things they can do. If you find a fault, a true fault, genuine fault in an item, Islamically you can do 2 things. Number 1, you can either keep it. But if you decide to keep it, you can't accept a partial refund. Do not accept a partial refund. Your laptop, for example, like as a key missing, you take it to the shop. Yeah, take it to Imtiaz. Imtiaz says, "What do you want?" He says, I found there's a key missing. Right now, if Imtiaz says to you, "Okay, look, I'll give you an extra key," it's okay, that's fine. End of story, it's done now. But if Imtiaz says, "I don't have an extra key," then Arib has a choice. Either he keeps it, he goes, "Sorry, I'll keep it." because he's selling at a good price, right? He can't say to Imtiaz, but give me £50 off. Can't do that. He's got to take it full price. Or he can give it back, and if he gives it back, he gets his full refund. So either you give it all back, or you keep it all with the full price.
What's the reason for not negotiating £10 less?
Very good. So what's the reason that you can't negotiate? Because, remember I told you before, when you make a contract, yeah, that contract that you make, that stipulate, that receipt that you written, you wrote down one keyboard for £300. You didn't stipulate the price of the individual bits of that keyboard. If you stipulated the price of the individual bits, like for example, on the receipt you wrote keyboard, laptop is this much, screen is this much, keyboard is this much, and you added everything up. If you found something faulty, you can give that back and replace it with something else. Because there's not one transaction going on, there's multiple transactions. Does that make sense? So in Islam, if you make a contract, you don't have the right to edit that contract.
But could you just renegotiate? You're giving it back now, say, look,
that's
now
fine.
that this key is missing.
Yeah, you mean, can you have a new receipt?
Yeah.
Yeah, new receipt, new contract, fine. You give the keyboard back, you go, that's fine, right? I'll give you another one. Yeah, meaning, let's do another transaction.
So is the first masala only if you bought something already, if you got it in your possession?
Yeah.
So it doesn't apply to, you say you see something and you see something wrong with something and you take it and you say,
No, you bought it.
you got it, okay.
Yeah. If, for example, let's say in the shop you see a fault, or you see, like, for example, a laptop and it's chipped on the side, or you go to a clothes shop and you see it's little torn, you haven't bought it, right? Now, if you take it to the shop and now you want to bargain with him for the price, you still haven't bought it, you're still not the buyer. You only become a buyer when you ijab and qabul. Ever understand? Or you go to buy a car and you find out that the engine's a bit run down, and you go to the guy, look, knock off £50, knock off £100, some work that needs to be done. Yeah, that you can do that only because you haven't bought it yet. But once you buy it, you can't phone the guy up and say, look, I want some money back, because make sense? Okay, so this is the original masala. This is the original thing for the default ruling for whenever you find a fault in an item. So إذا طلع المشتري, when the buyer he becomes aware of a fault after transaction, yes, because you only become a buyer after you bought it. في المبيع, in the product, فهو بالخيار, then he has a choice. إن شاء أخذه, if he wishes, he takes the item بجميع الثمن, in exchange. Ba here means exchange. In exchange for the full price. وإن شاء رده, and if he wishes, he gives it all back. Either take it all or give it all back. وَلَيْسَ لَهُ أَنْ يُمْسِكَهُ, he does not have the right to hold it. وَيَأْخُذَ النُّقْصَانِ, and take partial refund. He doesn't have the right to that. Why does he have the right to that? Because we said when you make a contract, you do not have the right to edit that contract. Okay, right. And the next question now, like I asked you before, how do we decide what is considered to be a defect in a product when you buy it? So if I buy a car, right, and the car is not washed, is that a defect in the car? So they have a rule. The rule basically is this: any defect which will reduce the price of that item in the markets, according to businessmen, then that is considered to be an official defect. Does that make sense? Yeah, so for example, like you bought a mobile phone, the screen is a bit dirty. Will that reduce the price? No, it wouldn't. That's not a defect. You bought a mobile phone and you found that the home button is missing. Is that a defect? That's a defect, because that will reduce the price, because you have to buy a button, and that button will cost you. Yeah, so these are considered to be, so it says, وَكُلُّ مَا أَوْجَبَ, everything that necessitates نُقْصَانَ الثَّمَنِ, reduction in the price, فِي عَادَةِ التُّجَّارِ, in the norm of the businessman, meaning in the markets. Right? فَهُوَ عَيْب, and that's considered to be a legal defect. Everyone understand that? Okay, so let's look at some examples of legal defects then. So he brings a list of examples. Okay, so running away. You got a slave now. So slaves are of two types. You got a slave which is an adult, and you got a slave which is a child. And in the olden days, both types were sold, right, in the market. So because in them days they had the concept of slave, buying and selling slaves, so that's why they mention in the books. So one aib inside of a slave, a minor slave, yeah, a child slave, is if it keeps running away. So a child that runs away a lot, that is a problem, because if you buy it, if it's going to run away, then you obviously won't be able to, utilize the services of the child in your house. Yeah? So let's say normally what would children be used for as slaves? For example, like they'll be used for, at home, helping out, doing little chores at home, things like that. So ibaq, running away in a minor, okay, minor. In an adult, is that a problem? Not necessarily. Like if it's got a track record, an adult ran away 2 years ago, will that affect it? Not necessarily. But in a child, it will. Next, number 2, if the child urinates in bed. So a child urinates in bed, is that considered to be a defect? Yeah, defect, yeah. So al-bawl fil firash. Number 3, saraqa, theft. Yeah, so a child, he steals. That's going to be because it's problematic, that is. It's giving a headache. It's going to give the owner a headache. He steals in the house, takes some money from here and there, takes people's property. So these are all considered to be defects inside of minors, yeah, minor slaves. Malam yablugh, so long it doesn't reach the age of puberty. Now, let's say, for example, it's got this track record now. So let's say, just like you sell a car, you have service history with it. So if they sell a slave, they go, you know what, I'm selling the slave, but it has had in the past complaints about it stealing, and the child has done this and done this, right? So it would reduce the price. And if the guy doesn't tell him that he done these things and he does that, then he has the right to give it back. Make sense? Now, if, however, he buys that it's an adult, but he has a past record when he was a child, he used to do these things, will that affect it? No, it won't. فَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ إِذَا بَلَغَ, when the child reaches the age of puberty, becomes an adult, لَيْسَ ذَلِكَ بِعَيْب, it's not considered to be aib until it makes it a habit. حَتَّى يُعَاوِدُهُ بَعْدَ الْبُلُوغِ. If it does it after, now it's an adult and it keeps urinating in the bed, or it keeps running away, then now we know that's a problem that was from the past and it's been brought up again. You got that? Okay. What about enslaved women? So enslaved women, the problem there is obviously enslaved woman is used for intimacy and things like that. So things like having an illness of bad odor coming from the mouth. One is having bad breath, right? That's fine because you just clean it. One is having an illness which necessitates bad odor. What is it called?
Acid reflux.
Yeah, I mean to that word. Whatever we said there.
No, it's halitosis, but like so someone's got acid reflux.
Yeah.
They get
Halitosis, yeah. So that's considered bad because that will make the owner feel, feel like put off. What dhafar or dhufar, this is illness to do with the armpits. Yeah, so a bad smell that emanates in the armpits. Fil jariya, in a slave woman. Now, what if a slave man has these problems? It's fine, because the slave man will not be used for the same thing that a slave woman used for. So if a slave man has bad breath, or he has, because usually his works can be outdoors, doing things, working, business. Laysa bi'aybin fil ghulam. This is not considered to be a defect when it comes to slave, a man. Illa an yakuna min da, unless this is due to an illness. Unless this is due to an illness means, unless this is a medical illness that this man has, then the seller should have told him about it. And because he didn't tell him about this is a defect, and this would reduce the price of that slave in the markets. Any sort of medical illness, it reduces the value of it. Okay, anything else? Yes. Fornication. Yeah, so fornication is considered to be a problem. وَوَلَدُ zina, and the child of zina. So if a slave is known to be a child of fornication, is born out of wedlock, that is also considered, in them days, in the markets, it was considered to be a defect. Right? Because normally people frowned upon this kind of thing. If a person's born out of wedlock, society normally would frown upon it.
This is the adult. You're talking about adult female.
Yeah, adult or whatever. So وَزِنَا وَوَلَدُ الزِّنَا عَيْبٌ فِي الْجَارِيَةِ. when it comes to a female. Right? Why? Because the female, the aims and objectives that the master wants in the female is different from the male. Dun al-ghulam. But not in the boy, not in them. Why? Because the male usually is going to be doing outdoor things, going to be working, going to do things that has nothing to do with fornication, doesn't really affect him being a child of zina, born out of wedlock, doesn't affect it. But the female will.
So if the female was a child herself, or a child of zina herself,
was born out of wedlock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's-
Or has a record of fornicating. Yeah. So that would affect it, because then that would make the master feel that doesn't want to go near them. Okay. Does that make sense? Now you see, these kind of things are difficult for us to understand because we don't even understand the concept of slavery in society. It's been outlawed now. Yeah. So the Ottoman Empire, they actually outlawed it in the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. They signed an agreement, the Geneva Convention, and they were part of it, and other Islamic countries, that they weren't gonna trade in slaves anymore. Right? So that, because of that treaty, right, Muslims are bound by that now. Those Muslim countries that have agreed to that, they're bound by that, and so they're not going to trade in slaves anymore. So this is why now the books of fiqh that are written later on, they won't have masail of slaves in there. So why do we study this then? So we study this because we want to understand the principles behind it. Because if you understand the principles in these masail, you'd be able to extend these masail to common issues that we have today. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what are kind of common problems when, let's say for example, you're going to buy a car? What would the common problems in a car be? What would the common problems in a mobile phone be? What would the common problems in food be? Yeah, so all these things are going to play a role. Make sense?
Might be a silly question, but so females are both due to their beauty. Female slaves, sorry. So a man, a rich man, he can buy a female slave due to her beauty and sleep with her. But a female, let's say a female woman who's rich, she buys a male slave, she can't sleep with him.
Yeah, correct. Okay, everyone got that? Right.
Going back on this other one, where it says the halitosis and the armpits, these are classed as a defect in a slave woman. Then it says not in a male, except if it's an illness. But isn't that an illness anyway?
Yeah, so if it's that, yeah, actually is. Yeah, so then in that case, the bad odor from the mouth and the armpit would be something which is like, some people have it a lot. Some people have a lot of, armpit smell. Just naturally they have it. And so, but not necessarily illness. So if it's classed as an illness, anything that comes as an illness will decrease. So you're right, yeah. So reduce the price. So therefore, bakhar and dhafar would mean just normally having bad breath and having bad armpit smell. Yeah. And then if it's because of an illness, then that would obviously be something that would reduce the price of it. Okay, next. Right. So one type of masla is done now. So we know some examples, and obviously you could have written loads and loads of examples of things that decrease the value of an item because of a defect. Next, let's say for example, Arib, he buys a laptop, takes a laptop home, and then what happens is the laptop falls from his hands, hits the ground and gets damaged, screen cracks. Yeah. So this is known as a new defect, a post-transaction defect. So this defect has occurred post-transaction. Then when he opens it up to try and get it fixed, he finds that there was a defect in there from before. Let's say for example, inside the laptop, something was burnt out anyway. That was burnt out from before he bought it. So what's happened? Two defects have come in here. One is pre-transaction and one is post-transaction. So previously we mentioned the defects were only pre-transaction defects. Now we're mentioning pre and post now. So if the buyer, Arib, he finds two types of defects in this, then what happens? This is different from before. Remember we said before, he's got two choices. Either he takes it for the full price or he gives it back for the full price, yeah? In this case, he's got two things he can do. Number one, he can either, if the seller wants, if the seller wants, he doesn't have a choice, but if the seller wants, he can give it back. So let's say Imtiaz, he takes it back to Imtiaz. Imtiaz is a good shopkeeper and he goes, you know what, just give me back, so I'll give you the money back. It's fine, even if you got the new Abe in there, I don't mind. I'll get that sorted. So out of his goodwill, he took the laptop back and he gave him full money. Right, that's fine. Number two, but if he doesn't want it back, and that's his right, he doesn't have to take it back because he's incurred a fault in there. So what happens now is he is allowed to get a partial refund. This is the first time we learnt about partial refund now. Why can he get a partial refund? Because he has a fault in there from before, which he doesn't deserve, but because he's created a new fault in there, he is not allowed to give it back without his permission, without his consent. Everyone understand that? So let's say you bought a car. You buy a car, driving the car around, you hit the car into a lamppost, and then you take it to the mechanics to get it fixed, and you find out from before that he had a faulty battery in there. From before. So one is the car being smashed, one is faulty battery. Then you have the right to get a partial refund. But if you take it back to the seller, and he says, you know what, just give me the whole car back, I don't mind. I'll get it all sorted out. Yeah, here's your full refund.
Can the seller refuse to give a partial refund?
No, seller cannot refuse partial refund. Arib then will go to court, and then the court will say, okay, prove that the defect was there from before. He'll prove it. You provide al-bayyinatu al-mudda'i. He provides the evidence. Once he provides the evidence, what will happen?
The court will tell him.
The court will say, okay, write a receipt. Say, you owe him this much money. Pay it.
So this is only for if you are both your post and pre-transaction defect. Obviously, if it's a post-transaction, you can't take it back.
Yeah.
It's your own fault.
So once you create the post-transact defect, technically you're not allowed to give it back unless he's happy with it. So look at this. وَإِذَا حَدَثَ عِنْدَ الْمُشْتَرِي عَيْبٌ, and when an aib occurs, a fault occurs with the mushtari, in the mushtari's possession, ثُمَّ اطَّلَعَ, and then he becomes aware of an aib kana عِنْدَ الْبَائِعِ, which was there from the buyer, meaning pre-transaction. فَلَهُ, then Arib has the right and يَرْجِعَ, to take back بِنُقْصَانِ الْعَيْب, with the defect of the aib. In other words, he has the right to take back partial refund due to the aib. وَلَا يُرَدُّ الْمَبِي, the mabi is not allowed to be given back. Yeah, he can't say, I want to give it all back. No. إِلَّا, except أَنْ يَرْضَى الْبَائِعِ, unless the buyer is happy, أَنْ يَأْخُذَهُ بِعَيْبِهِ, to take it fully with its new fault in there. بِعَيْبِهِ means with the new fault. I mean, this is like some shops do this, Asda does this in these places. So if they say money back guarantee, right? So if you go, you can even like buy something. You bought bread, and you had a few slices, right? And then you found inside the bread maybe like some mouse was dead in there or something, right? Then you can actually give it back. They'll give you full refund. But Islamically, what would happen? Yeah, because you've eaten some of it. You've eaten part of it. Yeah, so you create an aib in there. There's a defect that you put in there. But because they're happy with it, yarda, it's fine. Make sense? Okay, everyone understand that? Right now. Now, number 3, third type of defect now. So the first type of defect is a pre-defect. Second type of defect is a post-defect and a pre-defect. Third type of defect, right, is this. You've made a defect in there, post-defect, but you've added some of your own property to that thing. You've made a new addition to it, which cannot be separated from it. Okay, so, for example, like, let's say, Shaheed. Yeah, so Shaheed he's a tailor. Arib has taken his cloth and he wants to get shade to make him a coat. So he takes the cloth, gives him the cloth, takes all the measurements, right? Yeah. So what happens now? So this cloth that he had, where did he get it from? He bought this cloth from Imtiaz. So Imtiaz is the seller. So now he takes the cloth to Shahid. Shahid says, okay, you sure you want to cut everything? Yeah. He cuts it all. He's created inside of it
Defect.
by cutting his defect, isn't it? Right? So this is a post defect. At this stage, if he was to find a pre-transaction defect, what can he do? Partial refund, good. But he goes further and Shahid starts to stitch it together. So he's added to that cloth what? Something extra. Stitching has been added to it. Yeah, which is property of someone else. It's like his own property, his own wealth. He's paying for it to be added to that. So now when he stitches this all and he makes it into a jacket, what happens? It's made into a jacket now. And now he's realized that there was a pre-transaction defect in there. What does he do? Let's say, for example, like there was a big cut in the cloth from before. Or let's say there was a totally different color, big streak in the cloth. Or cloth was bleached. Huh? Okay, so you see here, he can only take a partial refund. He cannot even give it back. Even if he's happy to take it back, he cannot give it back.
Why is that?
Everyone understand that?
What about the case, the previous case, where he's actually cut it? That's he's not in the original state, is it? He
That's
can't
fine.
really sell it.
That's fine. But he doesn't have the right to take it back. He doesn't have the... he's not forced to take it back. He can take it back if he wants.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He
Yeah,
doesn't have to.
Doesn't have to. But in this situation, he is not allowed to take it back. Legally, he's not allowed to take it back. Why? Because someone else's property has been added to it now. So if he takes it back for free of charge, he's taking someone else's property. That's the problem. Make sense? Similar, for example, with cloth. He bought the cloth, he gave it to him, right, and he dyed it. Is dyeing cloth, is that a defect? Yes, a defect, isn't it? It will affect the value of it. Yeah. So he dyed the cloth, then he's found the defect in it. Pre-transaction defect, what happens? He can only take a partial refund. He can't give the cloth because he's added his property to it. Make sense? Likewise, for example, sawiq. So let's say Arib, he buys from Imtiaz wheat or barley, basically Weetabix. He buys it from him, puts it into a cup, adds milk into it, or adds water into it, adds butter into it, adds honey into it, makes it into a mixture. Yeah, sattu, what you call sattu. Yeah, a wheat mixture in Pakistan. They're drinking hot weather. We used to have this in madrasa, and it makes you very, very like cool down, sleepy as well. It's a big like pint glass of it afternoon. Yeah, cools you down. So see what happens. You bought this, and then you added to it your butter, you added to it your honey and water, mixed it together. Now what happens? He's not allowed to take that back if you find a defect in there. Let's say, for example, you found out that it was off.
What if I go to him and I say, I'm selling this?
Yeah, if you want to sell it to him, it's fine. It's a new transaction. That's totally fine. You can do that. Make sense? You can do that kind of thing. But you can't give it back to him.
So, like, for example, let's say in Asda you get one of these, try and if 100% satisfaction, you money back, and you get the Asda brand Weetabix. You mix in milk, and you don't like it. Can you take that back if they haven't taken it back?
Well, you're not going to give the bowl, are you? You're just going to give the box back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everyone understand that? Okay. So look at this now. So he says, وَإِنْ طَلَعَ الْمُشْتَرِي وَإِنْ قَطَعَ الْمُشْتَرِي الثَّوْبِ. The mushtari, meaning Arib, he cuts the cloth, gives it to the tailor to cut. وَخَاتَهُ, and he sews it as well. And so that's the important part. أو صبغه, or he dyes it. Oh, another masala, latta means to mix. As-sawiq, the Weetabix kind of mixture. Bisamanin, with butter. ثم اطلع على عيب, and then he comes across pre-transaction defect. رجع بنقصانه. He's allowed to take. If he doesn't want to take the partial refund, that's up to him. But he has the right to take partial refund. And if Imtiaz not going to give it, where does he do? Goes to court, and the court will just issue him, what's it? This. وَلَيْسَ لِلْبَائِ أَنْ يَأْخُذَ بِعَيْنِهِ. The buyer does not have the right to take the item itself. Doesn't have the right. Okay. Everyone understand that masla? So these are 3 levels of what? Finding a fault in something. Remember that. So this is the same with a car, for example. You buy a car, right? And what you done was you wanted to remap the engine, change the engine, or you wanted to change the brake pads on there. You added something new to it, haven't you? Yeah. And you found a defect in it from before. Yeah. What's gonna happen? Partial refund. Now, if that guy takes the car back, what can happen is you have the right to charge him for the value of the brake pads. You can say to him, look, I'll give you back, but you gotta give me the money for the brake pads. Because I put this into it, I put this much into it. Showing the receipts. Make sense? Okay, next masla. Look, this is a bit of a strange one, yeah? So you gotta listen carefully. A guy, Arib, he buys a slave. Yeah, he buys a slave. Then what happens is, Arib frees the slave. Yeah, he's thinking he's heard one of Sheikh Zayd's bayans. And he goes, I'm going to free the slave, I don't care. Slave, you're free, that's all he has to do. Free a slave, you just have to say, slave, you're free. And he goes free, you can't retract it. Or you bought the slave, let's say you bought the slave on Monday, and on Wednesday you freed it. Or you bought the slave on Monday, and on Wednesday it died of a heart attack. Yeah? So it's died now. Then later on, when obviously the post-mortem took place, the doctor found out, the examiner found that inside the slave were illnesses that he didn't tell you about. Yeah? So what's that? Pre-transaction defect. So what happens now? So the question comes now is that because the slave was freed by him, whether he had the illness or didn't have the illness, would that have affected the freeing anyway?
No.
And likewise, the slave has died, natural causes, whether you knew about the illnesses or not, would that have affected it? So do you have the right to take back the partial refund?
I think so.
Why?
Because didn't you sold something that...
Very good, yeah, that's your right. At that moment in time, that was your right, that was. Whether you benefited from that slave, whether you didn't, doesn't matter. Yeah, you buy a car and you gift it to someone else.
That's described in it.
Yeah? Everyone got that? Okay, alright. Now, everyone understand that masla? Let's extend this now. You bought the slave on Monday, you had a fight with it on Tuesday, and you killed him. Yeah? You killed the slave. Now do you have a right, after finding out, now you find out, the examiner does the examination and he finds that there was a fault in there from before, do you have a right to give it back, to get back the money? Partial refund. Huh? Why?
Because it's your
Very good. Same thing again. At that moment, that was your right, that was. Whatever you done with it, that's between, obviously, you're going to be in trouble with the courts, authorities. But that was your right at that moment in time. Likewise, you bought an apple. Yeah. You ate the entire apple. You ate home. Tuesday, you ate all the apple. Then you found out that the apple had worms in there. Yeah. Or the apple was off, or something was wrong with the apple. Or you bought a cake. Or anything like that. Imam Hanifa says the same thing. Because at the time of the transaction, you had the right. You didn't deserve to have the aib in there. So you have the right to take partial refund in any case. Does that make sense? Sorry. Yeah. So Imam Hanifa says you don't have the right. You're messing me up. So Imam Hanifa rahimahullah, he says this. So let me delete all that. Yeah. Go back, make your notes again. So this is what I just said was Sahibain's position.
Yeah.
Sahibain say that you have the right at the time of transaction to not have the fault inside of it. Right? So whether it was freeing of that slave, even Imam Hanifa agrees there as well. Whether it was killing the slave, whether it was the food that you ate, if there was a pre-transactional aim in there, you have the right to take a refund. Imam Hanifa says no. He says you do not have a right in those two scenarios. If you killed it because you transgressed against the slave. You transgressed against it, So you don't have the right. And because you ate the apple, you consumed it, then you lost your right because you've eaten. The aim of the apple was what? To be eaten. You've done it. So what do you want? What do you want a refund for?
Nowadays, especially in food matters, what do you say we take the Sahibain's opinion?
Why?
Most people probably do that though.
What?
Take the Sahibain's opinion, like if they get some kind of food and even if they eat it, and if it's not right, they find out later, they'll go and get a refund. Is that right?
But this is obviously if you've eaten all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, you've eaten all of it. Yeah, all the cornflakes.
So just all
Now you go to Asda, you get all money back.
It's like if you go to a restaurant and
Yeah.
get DMV the next day, you can't go back, they're not going to give you any money.
Yeah. But if you've eaten like half of it and you say, look, this doesn't taste right. Yeah, and they go to you. Then you have a right because you found the aib in it. Yeah. So, everyone got that? Alright, so
What's the punishment of killing a slave?
killing a slave. You find out and do one. Yeah. So the punishment of killing a slave is that the authorities will give you some sort of punishment that the judge sees fit. Maybe it's a prison sentence. Maybe it will be, lashes or something, whoever he sees fit. But it won't be like treated like a normal killing, like another human, normal free person. Yeah, your life won't be taken, or you want to give diya.
Is that any slave or only
Your slave.
Your slave.
Yeah. If you kill someone else's slave, then different. Like we did in Surah Baqarah. Yeah, the qisas. Okay.
So can I just ask, you mentioned that after he's eating the whole thing, like if you have those scenarios where you have food poisoning after you ate the whole food, then you get food poisoning. So is that something separate, or would that fall under this?
Yeah, so that would be separate. That would be harming yourself. So then that would be to do with penalties.
Okay.
Yeah, penal law. Yeah, so crimes that are committed against you. Yeah, that food harmed you, so then they'll be taken to court. Okay, right. Okay, next masla. For example, this happens now. Look, Imtiaz sells Arib laptop. Arib goes and sells his laptop to Ahsan. Ahsan now finds an aib in that laptop now. He finds a fault. That fault was in there from where? Pre-transaction, in time of Imtiaz. Now, if Ahsan gives the laptop back to Arib without going to the authorities, without going to the courts, so out of court settlement, Arib does not have the right to give it back to Imtiaz. Have you got that? Yeah. So Arib has bought the laptop of Imtiaz. Arib goes and sells it to Ahsan. Ahsan later on he finds an aib in there. Now he goes to Arib, look, I found this aib in there, I want my money back. He goes, okay, here's fine, take it. So if he gives it back to him, Arib does not have the right to give it back to Imtiaz. However, if Ahsan goes through the courts, if Arib was, I'm not taking it back, because the aib wasn't from me, he was from Imtiaz. So Ahsan goes to court, the court issues a decision, and that decision is that Arib has to give his money back, right, and take the laptop back. In that case, now Arib has the option of giving it back to Imtiaz without going court.
How would Imtiaz find out if I took it back and then just went to him that I'll find this fault?
Yeah, because he'll ask any. He'll ask. I mean, if he doesn't ask, that's it. He takes it back. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
So what if there's a dispute into where the was? If there's a dispute.
Obviously, it has to be proven.
Yeah.
It's going to be proven. So, like
It's
for
his
example,
responsibility to prove it, or his responsibility.
so he's obviously the guy that making the claim, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's got to prove it. So what's the proof? For example, like he says, inside the processor is a very old processor. He told me he's going to be giving me, an i7 core processor, and it's actually, i5. Yeah.
I'd have to prove it. Would that?
No, because if you want to give it back to him, you got to
Oh,
prove
okay.
it. You got to prove that the aib came from him,
Oh, okay.
not from you. If the aib came from you, you can't give it back to him. So the rule basically is this: if it goes through courts, then it can be taken back. So this goes like all the way. Let's say Imtiaz sells it to Arib, Arib sells it to Ahsan, Ahsan sells it to Ikram, all the way, right? Everyone that gives it back to the other person has to get it back through court. If it doesn't get it back through court, it doesn't go back. Stops.
So he can either take it back into a court, he can either take it back or give a partial refund.
And it depends what kind of aib is. If it's a pre-aib and a post-aib, he only takes a partial refund.
Is it just one qadi giving the decision, say from Siraj to me?
No, it doesn't have to be one qadi, it could be different qadis.
So I'm saying, okay, I've got the proof that this aid was from the written from me.
Yeah.
So they don't have to also go to the qadi, do they?
Yeah, they have to.
They have
Each one has to go.
individually have.
Each one has to go to the qadi.
Oh, I see.
So look at this. Man ba'a abdan, whoever sells a slave, so it's a laptop. Imtiaz sells a slave to Arib. فَبَاعَهُ الْمُشْتَرِي, Arib goes and sells it to Ahsan. ثُمَّ رُدَّ عَلَيْهِ بِعَيْب, then it is returned to him, meaning to Arib, with a fault. فَإِنْ قَبِلَهُ بِقَضَاءِ الْقَاضِي, if Arib accepts it through the court's ruling, فَلَهُ, then he has the right, أَنْ يَرُدَّهُ عَلَى الْبَائِي الْأَوَّلِ, to the first seller, Imtiaz.
So when I have the right to return it to the first seller, and let's say he was the only first seller, there was no one before him, do I still have to go through court?
No.
Okay, because I can just say this is what the court
That's it.
ruled. Okay.
Is that what it is? The reason the courts are involved is because other people's rights are involved now. Yeah, buying and selling, because you can only terminate a transaction when you have, like when something goes to someone else's ownership, someone else's rights are involved now. So you can't just take it off them. Right, so you got to go through courts. It's like overrules everything. A court can override any sort of transaction. وَإِنْ قَبِلَهُ, however, if he accepts it, meaning if Arib accepts it, this is why always, these examples I give, always like make a note of those, because that way everything becomes clear. If he accepts it بِغَيْرِ قَضَاءِ الْقَاضِي, without the qada, without the ruling of the qadi, فَلَيْسَ لَهُ, then he, meaning Arib, does not have the right and yaruddahu, to return it upon the first seller. Everyone understand that? Okay, last masala.
So can I just ask, on this one, if the courts are not involved and Arib takes it back from Hassan with that near that I'm going to get my refund back from Diaz,
No, you
he
can't.
can't do that.
No.
Even if he...
Even if.
Because he's accepted responsibility.
Yeah. But if Imtiaz says, I'll just take it back, it's okay.
Yeah, it's,
Goodwill, just I'll take it back, it's fine. But he doesn't have to, he's not forced to take it back.
So now, like when I used to work at B&Q, what they used to do was, if a customer returned something to this shop, it was a manufacturer's fault, then they'd just send it straight to the manufacturer without it going through court or something.
Because
So
it's not Islamic system, innit?
yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, if for example that was my shop,
Yeah.
is there any issues if I've got a deal with the manufacturer?
Yeah.
They'll just take it back. Is there any
That's
issue?
fine. If they're happy with it, it's fine. If they're happy to take it, a lot of companies do that with wholesale, they'll do that. They'll say, just to keep our customers happy, we're willing to do that. That's fine. This is telling the rights. What are the people's rights? You can waiver your right. Okay. Next, last masala now. In fiqh, according to the Hanafis, there's this concept. Like, let's say you got a car and they got lots of faults in there, and you just want to get rid of it. You say, take it as you see it. I'm going to sell my car, you buy it as you see it, yeah? With all the faults, everything. Basically, if you find any faults in there, you can't give it back. Are you happy with that? So he waivers his rights. So you have this right. Make sense? If that does happen, even if the seller does not count each fault, right? You can give it back. You can't give it back. So look, manishtara abdan, whoever buys a slave, like Arib, he buys a laptop from Imtiaz. وَشَرَطَ الْبَائِعُ, Imtiaz, the seller, he puts a condition, al-bara'a, this is the technical term, bara'a, yeah, free from all defects. Buy it as you, take it as you see it. Min kulli aibin, from every aib, فَلَيْسَ lahu, then he, meaning Arib, does not have the right, and yuruddahu bi'aib, to give it back with that fault. Yeah, because he accepted it initially and waived all of his rights. وَإِن لَمْ يُسَمِّ, even if the seller does not mention جُمْلَةَ الْأُيُوبِ, all the faults, وَلَمْ يَعُدُّهَا, and doesn't count them. Yeah, so there is also this concept, because sometimes what happens is, you might just want to get rid of something, and it's got faults in there. So you tell the guy in the beginning, look, there's loads of faults in this, man. This car's got loads of faults in there. You know what, just take it as you see it. Have a test drive. As long as you're happy with it, just take it. So if he finds out that one of the tires is low, if later finds out that the clutch is not working properly, or the seats are not comfortable, or the mirror window is not going down properly, can't give it back. because he waived all his rights. We'll stop there. Everyone understand?
Just a quick question, it's not connected to this chapter. When someone sells something, or if you're doing a service, what's the concept about charging different prices for the same thing,
It's fine. You're allowed to.
even if it's then like just immediately after the next?
Yeah, a seller is allowed to sell, because remember we said thaman is whatever the two people agree upon. So someone might come to your shop and say to you, how much is the laptop? And you say, I'm selling it for £500. Another guy might come and say, you know what, for you 350.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong at all. Obviously, if you lie to a person, that's wrong.
When you
Yeah.
mean lying, what do you mean?
Lying as in, you tell everyone I bought this for this much. Yeah. And then you're lying to them. That's wrong. Yeah. So Islamically, you can sell anything at any price you want. To any person. It's not like, you got this one price and you have to sell it at that price.
Is it the same thing? Is it applying for a service as well?
Service,
Say you do
same
the same service.
Yeah, service, same thing. You're a dentist, for example, you charge some people a certain rate, another people a different rate. It's up to you.
But even though it's exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
So we have like private fees and NHS fees and things like that.
That's fine. But if you lie to them, if you say this is our standard fee for everyone,
Yeah.
right, then no.